So it looks like Russia is in the denial phase about what's happening. I mean, what you're seeing here are not bridges to Crimea getting hit. It's not more and more supply trucks under fire. And it is certainly not oil raining down from the sky after a refinery strike north of Moscow. It's an information operation, all designed to make you think that any of this is actually a problem. At least that's according to Russian mill blogger or war correspondent Two Majors, who just yesterday said, quote, "We are dealing with an information warfare operation. Within the framework of this operation, Ukraine has indeed created serious problems with logistics on the peninsula. But the blockade of Crimea is physically impossible." And the reason he says this is that there are no enemy soldiers in the occupied territories in the south in Zaporizhia, and there are no enemy ships in the Kerch Strait. I mean, I guess technically that's correct. There are not soldiers blocking the entrance to Crimea, and there are not Ukrainian ships blocking access to the Black Sea or the Sea of Azov. But something tells me those fuel tankers, the drivers, and then the people on the ships trying to cross through some of those territories, they're not worried about Ukrainian soldiers. There's something else in the sky that they're keeping an eye out for. And moving back into the realm of reality here, Maxim Kalishnikov, another Russian mill blogger, actually acknowledges the situation going on, where he says, quote, "Victory is not achieved by blissfully talking about how we are advancing everywhere. On the contrary, the prospect of Russia being exhausted in a war of attrition is increasingly emerging, including as a result of the drone war against oil refinery, oil export terminals, and transport links in critically important regions. The moment of truth has come. The security forces are useless. After all, our air defenses are weak, and it's not enough at the refineries. And when Ukraine gets ballistic missiles, oil refineries will surely become the priority targets." And this is already happening. I mean, day in and day out, we are seeing not necessarily missiles, although Ukraine did launch their new Flamingo missile again a few days ago, but drones, Ukrainian drones making it through. We've got some footage that I'll play today of a strike 700 kilometers inside of Russian territory, daylight, clear skies, Ukrainian drones flying relatively low and striking, causing pretty significant damage. I mean, I'm hard-pressed to look at the flames and the billowing smoke with additional drones flying into that location and think that it did anything but pretty significant damage. I mean, even if it just takes it offline for a day or two, that's no joke. And that's happening all day, every day, for a while now. I mean, across Russia, major targets are coming under Ukrainian drone strikes on a pretty constant basis. Now, this is a good example of Ukraine choosing to fight a different war, right? So we have known for a while now that, I mean, we talked about how the artillery war that Russia wants to wage, nobody wants to get into an artillery war with Russia, Ukraine included. That was the war being fought in the opening months, arguably even years of this conflict. Ukraine has changed it to an area where they have an advantage. They're going after the soft underbelly of Russia. That is the oil refineries deep inside of Russian territory, and it's the logistics corridors in the south. And this is already starting to show results. Again, Maxim Kalishnikov says, quote, "According to reports from the enemy's agency Bloomberg, daily oil refining in Russia has plummeted by more than 20% to below 4 million barrels due to drone strikes. In short, the enemy has found a vulnerable spot and is attacking it, escalating the fuel crisis. Meanwhile, the Russian elite show remarkable sluggishness." And this isn't just a matter of the keyboard warriors. Right now, I do want to stress that a lot of these Russian mill bloggers have extensive contacts throughout the Russian military. A lot of that due to fundraising. A huge portion of the Russian military is operating based off of donations from private citizens, and it's the mill bloggers that organize that. So they do have contacts to get an idea of what is actually happening at the front. But we've also got, some of those mill bloggers and reporters on the ground in the occupied territory saying the same thing. Hey, that oil raining down north of Moscow after a refinery strike earlier today, that is indicative of the problems being shown on the front, where there is genuinely a fuel shortage right now affecting the front lines. This is Russian mill blogger Romanov, who said, "In Donetsk, there is no gasoline through the DPR. It occasionally appears at some gas stations, but they immediately run out of fuel. On the Donetsk-Avilo-Upshinka highway, the author did not find a single gas station with fuel, just like in Donetsk itself." In fact, real quick, let's go to a map to show you the area he's talking about. Deep state map here. So when he says DPR, that's the Russian terminology for Donetsk Oblast in Ukraine. So when he says there's no fuel in the DPR, he's talking about this entire territory here. That's a lot of land. And it's pretty critical, right? If you're moving from Rostov-on-Don, you have to go through portions of Donetsk if you're going to move to Zaporizhia or Kherson, and certainly over to the land bridge in Crimea. So fuel shortages here, main problem. The highway that he's talking about running out doesn't show up well on this map, but it's essentially the route to the south. Here we go. The route to the south to Rostov-on-Don. So it is a major connecting road from Russian proper territory into the occupied territories. And I don't know, maybe he's exaggerating, but Romanov here says not a single gas station with fuel along this road. Continuing on, he says from the DPR border to Rostov, limits have been imposed at gas stations. The criticality of the situation is that there is no fuel even for the military moving to the front lines. One of the units sent transports to purchase fuel at their own expense, but naturally, what they need is much more than what is available. At all gas stations in the Rostov region, this is Russian territory, not occupied Ukrainian territory. At all gas stations in the Rostov region, soldiers advancing to the front were refused to fill their barrels with oil. In one of the videos sent by the soldiers, a gas station in the Rostov region, the workers there refused to fill the soldiers' barrels. This is a real issue. We've talked about this as soon as these middle strike campaigns kicked off. And to push back on Two Majors' assessment that it has to be a 100% blockade to matter, just think about this in your personal life. If anything that you use, be it electricity or fuel or food or water, is cut by a percentage, 100% is game over, right? If you can get no fuel to your family, or you can't drive at all, if you can get no food, that of course becomes a major issue right away. But even a 20%, 30%, let alone 60 or 70% reduction is going to have a significant impact on your day-to-day. Again, take the context out of a war zone. It's just highlighted in a war zone. If the soldiers don't have fuel, that changes the entire dynamic at the front. If they only have 60% of the water they had last week, that becomes a major problem. If they only have 70% of the ammunition that they are used to operating with, that becomes a problem. A lack of fuel highlights all of this, and it is what the Russian forces are experiencing, according to Russian sources right now. And it's not just some of these areas in Crimea or the southern occupied territories. We have another Russian mill blogger here, the Voivod broadcasts, that said those Ukrainian strike drones have now reached the Rostov-Tagorog highway. They say, as we predicted a few weeks ago, this would happen. After that, it's just the M4 highway. So what they're talking about now is highways moving into Russian territory. So places moving, well, actually, let's pull the map back up here to show you exactly what they're talking about. So it's no longer just, according to this Russian source, the occupied territories coming under drone fire, but this stretch of the highway over here, Rostov to Tagorog. So now you've got stretches inside of Russia proper coming under drone strikes. And what they're saying with the M4 is the highway that connects Rostov-on-Don and the occupied territories all the way up to Moscow. It's like one of the major, main roadways throughout all of Russia. And according to some of these more pessimistic, or we could say realistic, Russian mill bloggers, that's what's next, is the main highways inside of Russia itself. Now, at the core of all this is a race. It's a race we've been talking about for a while, where Russia is trying to provide more air defense assets to their critical infrastructure, to the refineries, to the airfields, bridges, transport corridors. And the question is, can they do that before Ukraine is able to inflict irreplaceable damage on these locations? So Ukraine has been surging drones to the front to carry out strikes against these areas. Russia is trying to respond, and they have in some cases. We've seen some mobile anti-drone units operating in the south. The refineries, we see anti-aircraft fire, technically, I guess. Very hard-pressed to look at some of these refinery strikes and say that there's any significant air defense set up around those locations. It looks more and more, and this is what all the evidence points to, is that there are more locations at risk of being hit by Ukrainian drones or being hit than Russia has the ability to defend against. Now, that can change over time. We're seeing innovation on the Russian side. We're seeing redeployments on the Russian side, but I think there's a net shortage is probably the best way to put it. So that race, the results of that race, the impact of that race on the front is what we're on track to find out here in the coming months. Now, quick fundraiser update. We've raised 17,000 out of a 97,000 euro goal in our summer campaign to help out the Seraphim's drone unit with a number of pickup trucks. As a part of that, they sent over some pretty unique footage. I mean, I couldn't find this anywhere else on Telegram or Twitter, anywhere. The unit sent it to us to share with you all because of your support, and it shows how trucks are being utilized at the front. So check this out. We'll turn the sound on, but that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.
Так, я прямо і прямо. Ована. Ця хуйня злетіла по дорозі. Не обіссудьте. Хачапурі заберіть. Диви, оптику собрав камерою. Все, давай. А назад що, блядь, як? Що таке? Що? Де вона?
А вон вони. Далеко?
Норм.
Близько?
Я праву. Не зриваються нахуй, але їм пізда вже. Все,
їдем нахуй.
все. Стой, Жигуль їде. Все, вйобуємо нахуй.
Газ.